case now. More than £108 million has been paid out by a compensation scheme for people who were abused in children's homes run by Lambeth Council in South London. And GP News can exclusively reveal this. Well, it's believed to be one of the largest payouts by a council for sexual abuse in British history. Alice Porter has been speaking to some of the victims, and a warning that some of you may find her report distressing.
My house parents said to me, always remember that you're nothing here.
Sandra Fearon was at Shirley Oaks for 5 years in the 1960s and was repeatedly sexually abused.
He told me to lie on this sort of hospital couch and then he raped me. And I was just screaming and sobbing. The pain was just dreadful. He held me down, and that went on for 2 years.
So you've received one of the largest payouts in compensation. What kind of difference has that made to your life?
The compensation actually doesn't take the pain away, but it does help to maybe make my future a bit more secure. And you've been recognised that it happened. We're believed, and that is just so important to me.
Sandra is one of 2,236 people who have applied to the Lambeth Redress Scheme for compensation. Applicants have to provide evidence of their abuse. Shane Donnelly suffered physical, sexual and racist abuse at Shirley Oaks. He's waited 2 years for compensation.
People who have received far less for the same abuse because they're black felt almost sort of like victimised all over again. We had to go through psychiatrists, and the psychiatrists used our care files, which was written by our perpetrators. I know people who they got so ill and stressed that they just took the lowest offer.
Survivors are being supported by Raymond Stevenson, who also went to Shirley Oaks. He's been gathering evidence from victims for 7 years and campaigned for them to receive compensation.
Without the evidence we've collated, there wouldn't be any compensation. It's really just proving people were in the cottage, in the home, that the paedophile was working there, and then getting supporting evidence and other victims who were also abused by the same person.
Lambeth Council has apologised for the abuse committed against children at the borough's children's homes. They say their redress scheme is the first of its kind in the country and includes compensation to victims and survivors where race was an aggravating feature in the abuse. Only 6 men have been convicted since the 1990s in connection with abuse in the care homes. For Shane and Sandra, apologies are not enough.
They make a big thing of wanting to change the names of roads because of slavery, but they've discriminated against black survivors who were abused by them as a council.
People have got away with it. This lies up till this day. That's what I'd like to see, a criminal investigation.
Alice Porter, GB News.
Liars, abusers, criminals, absolutely awful to take away the innocence of a child. We're now going to go live to Alice at Lambeth Town Hall in Brixton. It has been a long battle for these people to get any sort of recognition, any sort of compensation. Is the end approaching? Is the end in sight for them, Alice?
I think it is for some people, as you say. I mean, this has been going on for years of people trying to get compensation, and it's been immensely difficult for survivors coming forward, as you could see from that piece there, of them having to explain the abuse they went through and how re-traumatising that can be. Now, 72% of the claims of people who've come forward have been completed. That means there's still another 28% of those people who have come forward who still have their claims to be completed. So that figure of £108 million is still expected to rise quite significantly. But there are many who say that this redress scheme does not go far enough because it crucially doesn't include children who went to the Melting Pot in Brixton. Now, the Melting Pot was a charitable foundation. It had 3 children's homes that was operating in Brixton at the same time as Shirley Oaks. There was one just up to 10 minutes down the road from where I am. Now, there was horrendous cases of abuse because those 3 children's homes were predominantly for children who are black, and many of them suffered horrendous abuse, sexually, physically, but many of them have spoken out and said that they weren't fed and weren't given food or water or clean clothes. So some really, really horrendous issues of abuse there. Now, those children who are now adults who went to the melting pot in Brixton, they are not eligible for compensation through this scheme. Now, this is because Lambeth Council say they did not run the melting pot. That was an independent charitable foundation, but they did partly fund it, and they did also send children from through Lambeth Council to the children's homes, and there are many survivors who are very frustrated that they are not eligible for this redress scheme in compensation. So a long way to go. Many victims still feel in getting the money that they feel that they deserved after decades of living with the abuse they suffered.
Well, look, Lucy, thank you for bringing us that exclusive report. Lots of people getting in touch about that story. Nigel Norman saying, I'm watching this awful story, saying it's incredibly difficult to watch, but he says it is incumbent on us all to know how this horrific abuse unfolded. Nigel Norman, thanks for getting in touch, and I think that's really how we feel this morning.
Yeah,
a really difficult watch, but an important story.
It's important that we get the message out there, and you know, also just warn children of dangers and when to be on the lookout for this sort of thing. The time now, 4 minutes before